first generation, and it's the worst because they're totally rejecting all the gifts of God. Then the Lord sent venomous snakes among them, and they bit the people, and many died. So in this area where they were at, there was a lot of snakes, a lot of adders, ADER snakes, which are really poisonous. So that's why they popped out. But here, this is venomous snakes. This is where our English translations make a big mistake.
Fiery serpents.
The Hebrew word that's used is seraphim. So if we read the Hebrew, it wouldn't say serpent, it would say seraphim. Which we're told in Isaiah 6 is the angelic servants of God. If we looked at Isaiah 6 verses 2 and 3, we hear above him were seraphim, each with 6 wings. With 2 wings they covered their face, and with 2 wings they covered their feet, and with 2 they were flying. So God, we're told in verse 6, God sends his messenger, not just snakes, to these people. So the Lord says to Moses, make a snake, and in this case, they actually did use the term snake in the Hebrew Bible, and put it on a pole. Anyone who is bitten can look at it and live. What does this sound like?
It was made of bronze, and I thought part of what they used in the temple.
Bronze was not the most sacred metal, it was a secondary metal, the thing used for sacrifices. So that's one tie-in.
Christ was put up on a stick.
Exactly. Christ was lifted up. So we're told, here's what Jesus tells us in John chapter 3, verse 14. Just as Moses lifted up the snake in the wilderness, so the Son of Man must be lifted up in the air. And that's what happened to Jesus. When he was put on the cross, they lifted him up in the air. So Jesus tells us, I am just like the snake in Moses. Because how are the people healed?
Just by looking at them.
Yeah.
And they just by looking at and what?
Accepting.
And accepting, he should live.
Having the faith that that would cure him. Okay?
Yeah.
But that wasn't considered an idol?
No,
No.
not in this case.
No.
There's a difference between idols and icons. An idol is something, when you look at it, you worship that thing. An icon, you're looking through that thing to something that's greater. So the icon is just a symbol. So in this case, the bronze snake being lifted up was a symbol of Jesus. And the Israelites' faith in that thing, that would save them, that's what did it. It wasn't anything else. God didn't give the Israelites a miracle cure. He just said, you need to have faith in this.
Another thing about this is God basically answered them with no. Because they asked for the adders to be taken away. And God said, no, I'm not going to take these adders away. I'm going to give you a way to get through it. But I'm not taking them away because I'm tired of you people. You drive me nuts.
Oi.
Oi!
Hopefully not too much of a rabbit hole, but you tie that into with snake handlers and certain little Christian sects, I would imagine.
There's some Christian
tie-in.
sects out there who do that snake handling.
I'm guessing that's the biggest tie-in in the Bible.
Yeah, probably. And they actually take venomous snakes, and supposedly their faith in God will stop the snake from not biting them and killing them.
Or milking the snake before they perform with it. You know,
So
building up power.
they milk all the poison out of the snake before they handle them. So then when they get bit, it's like, oh, well, in reality, they just milk the snake.
To me, that still seems like a
Feather insurance, you
sideshow.
could build up
It is a
power.
sideshow.
Like a circus act.
We're not
But you have
doing
to have a lot
that.
of faith.
No.
We're not ever going to do that.
Right.
I thought it was kind of interesting, it didn't say that any died this time.
Well, many died from the snake bites,
Okay, where did I see that?
In verse 6.
Okay. Clean up aisle 7.
Yeah. And of course, the people come running to Moses and said, "We sinned when we spoke against the Lord and against you. Pray that the Lord will take the snakes away from us." And like Red said, God didn't. So Moses prayed for these people. Interesting, again, when Moses got his sentence that he would not go to the promised land, he didn't protest, but here, once again, Moses intercedes for the Israelites.
Yeah, he could have actually said, I don't care anymore. I'm not going to the promised land, but he kept going.
Could be, he still takes care of these people.
Right.
So again, another interesting thing to pull out of verse 9 is what God did was said, okay, you're gonna have to obey me if you wanna live.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to obey or die.
Another reason to obey.
Yeah.
Right.
Another thing to obey.
And do it in a crazy way. You know, look at this bronze snake that's on a pole and you'll be saved. Who would do that, you know? But finally, the Israelites are finally obedient and they do something that's totally crazy and it saves them.
And can I just say something?
Yeah, of
Also, I
course.
just see, just hearing this, how that, even back then, how God just allowed things to happen to them, people let them do what they do when they sin, and how He just still just works out everything for the good. He turns it around so that He can get the glory. Same thing is what happened to us today, how He allows stuff to happen around here, but He just always work out things for the good, and He still gets the glory. Because if He just let stuff happen and He didn't intervene, we wouldn't even give glory to Him, knowing that God is the one doing. So He just wants them to know, I'm God. You know, you're my people, and I just want you to know I'm God. The miracles and stuff He was even doing. It was always, even when He hardened Pharaoh's heart. I mean, He did it so that He can get His glory out of what He was doing for the Israelites to see. Yeah, I'm good. Anyway, this is something
No,
in my mind.
you're spot on.
How He
You're
just
spot
worked
on.
with us today the same way.
Yeah.
He gets the glory. Amen.
Amen.
God
Yeah.
did that, you know.
God did that.
Okay, like I
It's
said,
just amazing.
before we started, it's interesting how man takes something like this, the medical profession uses the snake.
Same.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, they
same
do.
bronze snake with
I didn't think
twist.
about that.
Caduceus.
It's on their
What's it
symbol.
called?
Caduceus?
Caduceus, yeah.
Caduceus.
That snake business, like passed on from generation to generation, that I don't know anybody that likes snakes, so, you know, I think snakes are repelling. And so, does it come way back from then?
Well, probably back to Eden.
Yeah.
Yeah,
you
right.
know,
Yeah, I don't like snakes either.
way back then.
Well, the medical profession can't always heal, it's God that heals.
Yeah. It's, how many times have you heard a doctor say, well, you know, medicine, it's part science and part art.
Well, that's why they call it practicing medicine.
Yeah, they're still practicing.
Yeah.
So, the journey to Moab, the rest of the chapter, nothing too astounding. In verse 29, people of Shemos, he was the god of war for the Moabites. So it's not that he was a king or something. And then verse 34, the Lord said to Moses, "Do not be afraid of him, for I have delivered him into your hands, along with the whole army of his land." So God tells Moses, "You will be victorious. Just march on." And that takes us through chapter 21. Next week we'll have chapter 22, 23, and 24. And we're getting close to the end of Numbers. Numbers has 34.
Mm-hmm.
Good.